Hey guys, I'm Eric, and today this is my review of the Garmin Descent X50i dive computer. I'm a technical diver with over 10 years of experience. I have over 1,000 dives. I've been a cave diver now for just around 7 years. I have hundreds of cave dives under my belt. And so Garmin allowed me to take this on a recent cave diving trip where we spent 10 days doing long penetrations, deep dives down to almost 170 feet on multiple gases with DPVs, multiple tanks, and some dives up to 4 tanks. And so it was really neat to be able to use this and really put it through its paces. And today we're going to go over some of the features that I liked, that I found really useful for my diving. So first off, one of the big things that we really liked about the Garmin was just its solid build and its size. In a technical environment, when you're heavily task loaded, you got a lot of gear on, I find that having a big, bold, bright screen with large fonts, large numbers, really easy to read, especially because I wear bifocal dive goggles. So being able to see it and read all of the details is really important to me. So having the bigger screen, I really enjoy. The other thing I really liked about it is the fact that it's got 4 buttons on the bottom. Each of these buttons do a function, but also can be programmed to do multiple other functions. So pressing and holding or multiple taps can actually change the function of that button. Again, a little bit of step above some of the other computers that have just a 1 or 2 button control. This does allow for quick access to some functions that you might want, like gas change in water that's much quicker, which I really enjoyed. It's one of the things that I always find a little bit cumbersome with some other systems is doing my gas changeover when I'm diving on multiple gases. And I find with the Garmin now, with this one, it's really easy because I have a hotkey that goes right to it. I select the gas I'm switching to and hit enter. As we can see here, when you turn the device first on, you're presented with the basic dive screen. This gives you your start with dive, your dive mode, your dive setup, and your dive plan, or plan your dive screen. It also gives you your dive logs and your surface interval. A couple of things that I really liked on this main screen, being able to go right to my dive log and see a very detailed view of my recent dives. Obviously, one thing we all like to do is get back to the boat or get back to shore and kind of brag about the dive we did, right? So to be able to look at a very detailed review of that with a really nice graphic sort of histogram of the depth of the dive and the dive profile, different events during the dive, when you changed your gases, different times, different deco stops, really breaking down a lot of detail that you can see right on the computer. What I find is that I go to that first rather than uploading to my phone. So if I'm on a boat, I gotta pull my phone out, I gotta upload to it. And that's always, to me, feels a bit cumbersome, especially on a really wet boat. I don't know, I pull my phone out. It still automatically uploads when I get back to the hotel. There's built-in Wi-Fi. So as long as it's programmed to the Wi-Fi where I'm at, it'll automatically jump on, upload all my dives. They'll be all on my Garmin app. Dive planning was really useful. It's a very similar to a lot of the other computers that we all use. So we can compute our NDL, basically compute for a dive to see if we can do it within no decompression limits. Your standard calculating your gases, so what's your mod for each of the gases you're gonna be breathing. The deco plans we used a lot because we were doing deco dives. And I really liked the ability to see, when my deco stops were, how long, and what gases I would need to be breathing for each of those stops. So really basic. I would say that, if you're doing more complex deco diving or more complex trimix, probably using a deco planner, a software-based deco planner is probably the way to go. So for a lot of the dives that we do, where we're just breathing 2 gases, say like EA50 or 32, and air, and we're not doing a really crazy profile, I find that just using the dive planner on here works really well, and it gives me a really good idea of how much gas I need to bring, and what my deco stops are going to be. The one feature on the dive plan, which I've never seen on another dive computer, is the nearby dive sites. So that function on here I thought was really cool. When you have the GPS turned on and say you're on your boat, and like I have my own boat, so being able to just go to whatever dive site I want is very easy. I can actually look on the GPS and find all of the tagged dive sites in the area, and it'll navigate me to them, which is really kind of fun if you're in an area that you maybe haven't been to before, or maybe there's a new dive site that's been added to the map that you want to check out. I think that feature is really unique to this device, and kind of cool that you can just do it right on your wrist. The service interval screen is basically very similar to a lot of the other devices. You're going to get your basic surface interval, your T2 saturation, am I clear to fly or not? All of the standard basic functions that we need to know between your dives so that we're safe. The dive modes, so we're given a few different options here. So when you go to dive modes, you have single gas, multi-gas, CCR. So this is a non-wired CCR. So this would be your off-board, maybe secondary computer to your wired, if you're using something with your rebreather. And then a gauge mode. Gauge mode is kind of like a tech mode or slimmed down mode compared to sort of the standardized modes of the single and multi-gas modes. So I tend to use the multi-gas mode the most. For the diving I do, we tend to run multiple gases, usually nitrox and air. For the caves, it helps us in extending our deco time, or extending our no decompression time, as well as allowing us to go to deeper depths. So the last trip I was on, we were purposefully looking for systems where we could go with a fairly deep penetration on DPVs and then go down to deeper depths. Some of our dives were close to 160 feet. So being able to have those mixed gases was great. Being able to do it with the computer was obviously key to our safety. So that mode was what I used the most, and I really found, like I mentioned, that I enjoyed this changeover, the ability to change gases quickly. So when we go to start planning this, we're gonna get our first screen after we choose. That's gonna tell us, for mine, it says that all of my tones and vibrations are turned off. On the next screen, we have all of our basic settings for the dive here. So right now it's gonna tell me that my bottom gas is air, my travel gas for this setup was EAN50. It gives me my mod, tells me my conservatism. So I tend to dive a 40-80. I'm pretty conservative. I'm a little bit older, so helps keep me within range. Allows you to change your water, so we were freshwater. It also gives you your air integration. So this is something that I think that really any diver I think should switch to these at this point instead of glass gauges. Having all your air on your heads up, right on your display, just makes it so much easier to see your gas. You're not reaching for stuff. It's just right there. I dive, 3 to 4 tanks. So being able to see, I think, up to 8 tanks on this is really cool. The other great thing about the air integration with Subwave with this computer is that I can actually have multiple of these on my dive partners, and I can see their air, but I can also see their location. So what this allows you to do within a range, I can see distance to my dive buddy and degree of rotation. So whether they're, to my right, to my left, in front of me, and then kind of how far away. So that's really useful, say in a low visibility environment, say on an ocean dive, it's low visibility, you get lost in a kelp forest. Instead of like looking around and starting to panic, I can just look and see, hey, my dive buddy's over here, like 40 feet away. I also find that for dive masters, I think this is going to be really key. I can't see a scenario where this wouldn't help, especially if you're providing all the gear. So let's say you're renting all the gear, you're the dive master, you're teaching a class, having this air integration on every one of your students. They have it on their dive computer, you have it on yours, because you can both be chained to the same Subwave. Allows you to not just see their air and kind of keep an eye on them. We still want to be asking, our students, how much air do you have? We want that communication. We want to learn how to hand signal. But, you get those stressed students that maybe just really are overloaded, and being able to kind of see how much air they're going through, I think could be really useful. I only dive with with wireless air now. I've found even in cave diving, and I know that there's some discussion on that, I don't have a problem with these. I keep a very small, almost half-inch round glass gauge on each of my tanks as a sort of backup. But that's a redundancy that a lot of us do in tech diving. We always have multiples of everything, but I'm using my wireless all the time, and I find that really useful. So you're gonna be able to see that on your setup screen when you're setting up your dive. And then once we confirm, we're gonna get to go to our main dive screen here. So on the left side of the screen, you're gonna get your standard features. So that's gonna be your time, your NDL, or your no decompression limit. It's got both a numeric limit and a little graphic view that goes from green to yellow to red. So the closer to deco you get, the closer the color red gets. It's gonna tell you your depth, your time, and then your gas, so what gas you're on. The next screen on your right side, this is the configurable screen, and you can have a lot of different configurations on this screen. So this allows you to fully customize this side of the screen, and a lot more so than we can with a lot of the other computers. And this is another feature I really enjoyed. You can choose how many additional screens you want, so you can add or remove additional screens that you can cycle through. And then on each of those screen pages, you can add multiple, you can have one widget, you can have multiple widgets. I think the maximum is 6 or 7 on widgets on a single screen. And so that's all configurable through the menu button. So that would be the far button on the far right side. And in there, you can change all of the functions here for the data screens. There's a lot of options. Again, not like some of the other computers that are really limited to what you can put on the screen. This has just dozens of options for each of your different features, whether you're wreck diving, technical diving, whether you want to see gases from all your dive partners. So that's a really amazing feature. I really enjoyed being able to set that up and cycle through it. The other really cool feature that this has that I haven't seen on anything ever before is the light. So it has a little torch, and you can change the function that it does. So I know this is something that not everybody's uses all the time. Why would I have a light on my dive computer? You know, I found this really useful when I was looking for stuff in my dive bag in the dark and I didn't want to pull out one of my primaries. Or maybe you're on a boat and you don't have a primary light with you. So having this little light to look around in the bag. For me as a cave diver, more lights are always better. I carry 2 primaries, multiple backups, a headlamp, but I have had most of my lights fail. I've had one dive where all 4 of my lights died. And thankfully my dive partner had light and we were able to make it out safely. But to be able to have this little torch there as a backup, it's pretty cool. It doesn't, you know, this has so much battery that it's not gonna run out on you or run your dive computer dead while you're on it. So other than that, the other big function that I really think is key, nobody else has this, and I think every diver should carry with them, is the InReach Mini. We can link to a story. My wife and I were on a dive last year where our InReach Mini saved her life. We had an incident on a dive. We were far offshore, and with our InReach, we were able to get emergency services, contact emergency services, communicate with what the status was, what her condition was, what kind of help we needed. This was amazing. It saves lives, and to be able to put this in a dive housing, which is available, keep this on your rig all the time. The cool thing with the new Garmin's is that I have full integration here on the dive computer. So when these two are paired, I can leave this in the dive housing. I can access all the functions right here on the dive screen. And I can send check-in messages, which are pre-programmed. So I come up from a dive, I want to let my partners know, you know, family back home, hey, I'm out, I'm safe. I tend to do this every cave dive I do. I let my family know I'm safe. It's dangerous. They're always worried. The minute I get out, as soon as I have service or I have GPS signal, because we're underground, I let people know we're safe. But in the ocean, Imagine coming up from a boat dive and your boat's gone. This has happened. We've seen these stories. You have, worldwide GPS communication coverage right here in your pocket and integration into your dive computer. So you never have to take it out of the housing. You can send, like I said, new messages, which you can type in. You can also just hit the SOS button and that will call emergency services immediately. So these functions and these things, I think again, every dive master, everybody who's guiding and leading dives, I think you should just have this on you. I can't see any reason why I wouldn't. And being able to integrate this now with my dive computer, I think is a major reason why I would want to switch to something like this. It's just key, it's just safe, and it just adds more of a safety factor to the things that we're doing. So I really enjoyed this feature. I think these two devices together are something that everybody should have. Again, my name's Eric, and this is my review of the Garmin Descent X50i dive computer.